What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Oh, my goodness. Easy like Sunday morning. This is Michael in the wee hours of the night on the graveyard shift with your daily trivia question. How about the Wolfpack? Huh? Beating Miami earlier tonight. That's what I'm talking about. Go Pack. Anyways, new week, new opportunities. Here we go, folks. Off and running. It's good to be back. I had a day off. I had one day off. I think it was one day. It seemed like forever when you have a day off like that. But anyways, I'm back to the grind. And away we go. The answer to the previous trivia question was none other than the assembly line. Of course, folks, this is one of those where you go for the obvious, right? So the assembly line was nothing new. Nothing new at all before Henry Ford came along and his car factories. China actually used the concept of an assembly line for many things. It went back to the Venetian days, actually, I found in my research, where ships would actually move down a canal and people would run out to the ship as it would pass by and fit it with various things. You know, these shops would take care of the ship as it passed by. It was a very significant part of the Industrial Revolution, as well as you can quite possibly imagine. Ford didn't invent the assembly line, is my point. What he did was perfect it, and he more specifically perfected the moving assembly line. So this moving assembly line was developed specifically for the Ford Model T, and it began operation in the Highland Park Ford plant on October 7th of 1913. That, of course, was the focus of the trivia question. It was a famous factory plant using the moving assembly. What was taking 12 hours to complete could now take less than half of that. He got it under less than 6 hours on his first run with the moving assembly line. What's significant about what Ford did at the Highland Park and with the assembly line was that he continued to evolve and perfect more aspects of the assembly line. He just didn't throw it out there. He threw it out there, used it, and continued to hone in on different aspects of it and how to improve this process. He used time and motion study. Without question, he was a master at it. His assembly line was driven by conveyor belts, and he wound up, when all was said and done, being able to produce Model T cars in just 93 minutes, in only 45 steps. These are things that he was very good at when it came to his assembly line production. In essence, he could produce cars quicker than the paint that they were used to paint with could dry. That's pretty impressive back in that day. In fact, Ford's assembly line process was so successful that painting the cars became a bottleneck issue. I saw that in my research. I got to thinking, how'd you like to be the guy, who paints the cars? Here he is. He's like, today I'm going to paint one car. Now you got him rolling off the assembly line like every 3 minutes. Guy's like, man, I need some help. Hire some more painters. As the Model T came off the line in 3-minute intervals or 6 feet per minute is what Ford got that down to on his assembly line. He said of his 1913 assembly line setup, he said, quote, "I believe that this was the first moving line ever installed." And in fact, it was. The idea came in a general way from the overhead trolley that the Chicago Packers used in dressing beef. So he got his idea from the meat market in Chicago. You know how the slabs of meat would move overhead and so forth on those assembly lines, just like that. That's where he got the whole idea from. It by June of 1924, some less than 10 years later, the 10 millionth Model T rolled off the Highland Park assembly line. Mad money we're talking here. Just genius as far as innovative techniques. It had an immense influence on the world, as you can imagine. For a number of reasons, it ushered in the age of the car. It changed the way work was done forever in any environment, really. The assembly line did. A product was put together at one place, which until then was unheard of. You had to go to different places to put products together and so forth. You're bouncing around all over. It increased efficiency so the price of the product could come down. That was really what Ford's goal was initially setting out. He wanted motor cars for the great multitude. He wanted everyone to have one of these. And he knew that if he could find an efficient way to do it, the price could come down so where everybody could afford it. Ford could pay his workers more. He upped the ante in this regard to $5 a day, right? All of this can be attributed to the assembly line. He hired immigrants. People came from all over the world to work at the Ford Highland Park plant because they knew that they could get a job on one of these assembly lines and learn this trade. Learn to do something repetitively. So immigrants, he hired a number of immigrants, and they came from all over the country to work at Highland Park. He moved the process to other parts of his factory, parts and pieces and so forth and everything else. Also incorporated the assembly line for faster efficiency and productivity. Now, having said all that, there were some negative aspects of the assembly line. When you manage time like that and you get it down to every very specific second, it amounts to managing people. And Ford wanted complete control over people in this regard. And what they were doing. He wanted them doing nothing more than sitting on that assembly line doing one task at a time. He was obsessed with this. And the repetitive aspects of the assembly line really amounted to unskilled workers when you bottom line everything. You couldn't grow in that capacity, right? And this was moving into the 20th century. The 20th century was ushering in. And yeah, they were making a lot of cars, but they were doing the same thing over and over again. They were not growing in their positions, right? And you can still see the basic concept of the moving assembly line really in any workplace capacity today. Perfect example. I was asked to stay over one night and help out in the kitchen, prep meals and so forth, and everybody was running around grabbing coffee over here, meals over here, condiments over here. It was an absolute cluster gaggle mess until we all stopped and lined everything up. And it was assembly line 101. You could basically have gone back to the Ford plant. And once we did that, we got an efficient process going. So it's all about breaking it down to those basic assembly line techniques and so forth, and it still resonates today. Look at today's assembly line. I included a picture of that. That is a basic moving assembly line for today's automobile plant. The one thing you'll see that's missing is people. It's all done by machines and robots now. That was a pretty amazing aspect of where we are now and where we came from, for sure. All right, folks, let's get this easy like Sunday morning going with a brand new trivia question right here and right now to end the first week in October and start a brand new week. On this day, in 1865, a man named Samuel Van Sickle successfully installs this underground for the first time ever in the United States, stretching more than 8 kilometers in order to reach the railroad station faster and to bypass rugged roads, rough terrain, and bullying teamsters. Take a guess at that, folks. And have a peaceful Sunday. Good day of rest. You all deserve it. Thanks for all you do. And don't forget to look out for each other. Peace out.